On the eastern edge of Sicily, something is happening so slowly that you'd never see it standing still, yet so steadily that scientists can track it almost inch by inch. Mount Etna's entire southeastern flank, forests, villages, old lava fields and all, is sliding toward the Ionian Sea. Not in a dramatic rush, not in great blocks tumbling down slope, but in a quiet drift measured in centimeters per year. It's a movement that stretches across a wide area of ridges and communities built on the volcano's long, sloping side. For decades, researchers thought this kind of deformation must be linked to Etna's eruptive cycles, pressure pushing outward from magma rising within. But the more instruments they installed, the clearer the pattern became. Gravity is now the primary force, slowly pulling the flank outward and downward, independent of whether the volcano is erupting. This matters because movement of this scale doesn't happen once and stop. It is ongoing, and geological evidence shows it has happened before. Etna has a long history of building itself up and breaking itself apart. And to understand why this slow motion matters today, we have to look at the terrain Etna is built on, and what it has already lost once before. Picture Etna from a distance. A dark, broad pyramid, rising more than 3,300 meters over the Mediterranean. It looks immovable, a monument carved by time. But what sits beneath its lower eastern flank is far less stable than its towering silhouette suggests. Much of this side of the volcano rests on ancient marine sediments, soft layers left behind by long extinct seas. These layers compress, bend, and shift far more easily than solid volcanic rock. When Etna erupts and lays down new lava flows, they add weight to an already flexible foundation. Over centuries, that weight has built steep slopes high above ground that can subtly adjust to the strain below. The reason this volcano exists at all lies deep underground, where the African plate is subducting beneath the Eurasian plate. That collision melts the crust, feeds magma upward, and creates the eruptions that have shaped Etna for hundreds of thousands of years. But lava doesn't stack itself neatly. Every new flow adds uneven pressure. Every intrusion of magma pushes against the surrounding rock. And on the eastern flank, where the ground is softer, that pressure is easier to redistribute. Still, this unstable foundation is only part of the story, because the landscape here also carries the enormous scar of a past collapse. If you travel across Etna's eastern flank, you eventually reach a sudden drop, a vast open wound carved into the mountainside. This is the Valle del Bove, a colossal horseshoe-shaped depression roughly 5 kilometers wide and nearly 1 kilometer deep. Geologists know this feature didn't form slowly. It was created by a major flank collapse tens of thousands of years ago, when a massive portion of the volcano's side gave way. The force of that collapse reshaped the entire region. The evidence doesn't stop on land. Offshore surveys have mapped huge debris deposits scattered across the seafloor of the Ionian Sea. These fields of shattered rock and volcanic rubble match what you'd expect from ancient landslides. Huge sections of Etna that once broke loose surged downslope and plunged underwater. Together, the valley on land and the debris offshore tell a clear story. Etna's flank has failed before, and the slow movement happening today fits into a much longer geological pattern. But ancient scars alone can't explain what's happening right now. For that, scientists needed modern instruments capable of watching the mountain move in real time. And what they discovered surprised them. In 2016, a team of researchers placed a network of underwater acoustic sensors along Etna's submerged eastern flank. Their goal was simple: measure whether the seafloor beneath the volcano was shifting. For years, scientists had tracked movement on land, but they didn't know if the offshore part of the slope, the part no one can see, was moving too. Then came May 2017. Over 8 quiet days, without an eruption, without a major earthquake, the sensors recorded a 4 centimeter slip, a subtle shift, but unmistakable. This wasn't an isolated crack or a shallow landslide. The measurement showed that the entire submerged portion of the flank was sliding, just like the land above it. That meant Etna's southeastern side is not deforming in pieces. It's moving as a connected, cohesive block. Even more importantly, the slip happened without magmatic pressure pushing it. The data pointed directly to gravity-driven sliding, confirming what surface instruments had only hinted at. And once scientists understood the mechanism, they turned their attention to a new question. How does this shifting flank respond to Etna's ongoing eruptions and earthquakes? Over the past several years, Etna has continued its restless pattern of eruptions. Using an array of GPS stations, radar satellites, and seismic sensors, scientists have documented ongoing slow movement along the eastern flank, consistent, gradual, and measurable. After the volcano's more energetic eruptions, researchers have often observed subtle changes in the deformation patterns on this side of the mountain. These adjustments aren't dramatic. They don't indicate imminent collapse. But they show that Etna's drifting flank is sensitive. It responds to what happens inside the volcano and beneath it. In 2025, Etna produced a series of explosive events. Lava fountains rising into the night sky, ash drifting over towns, tremors shaking the summit. Following these eruptions, seismic activity persisted, and monitoring instruments continued detecting signals of stress and motion in the same general area of the sliding sector. Nothing pointed toward rapid acceleration, but the activity reminded researchers that this portion of Etna is dynamic and reactive, a landscape that shifts in response to both eruptions and tectonic movements. And these patterns raise an important question. Could a large, sudden failure occur? A full, rapid collapse of Etna's southeastern flank, the kind that could generate a major tsunami, is theoretically possible, but scientific studies consider it unlikely in the near term. There's no evidence that such a failure is currently developing. What research does support is a more gradual scenario, a staged or partial collapse, where smaller sections of the flank give way over time, moving progressively downslope. These smaller failures could generate localized waves if they reach the coast or seafloor quickly, but they would not produce the catastrophic, basin-wide megatsunamis often exaggerated in sensational headlines. What makes predicting these events difficult is that gravitational collapses behave differently from eruptions. Eruptions leave signals, gas spikes, tremors, magma intrusions. But a gravitational failure can be influenced by a range of factors, from tectonic earthquakes to magma pushing sideways, even to heavy rainfall infiltrating deep fractures. That uncertainty is exactly why Etna has become one of the most closely watched volcanoes in Europe. Today, Etna is monitored by one of the most advanced volcanic observation networks in the world. The INGV Observatory in Catania operates an extensive system of tools. GPS receivers that detect millimeters of motion, seismometers listening for tiny earthquakes, gas sensors measuring emissions at the summit, thermal cameras watching new vents, and ocean bottom instruments tracking movement offshore. Together, they produce a nearly continuous stream of data, a digital heartbeat of the volcano. This is how researchers know that Etna's flank is not static, but dynamically stable, moving, adjusting, but not currently accelerating in a dangerous way. Still, even with all this technology, gravitational collapses remain harder to predict than eruptions. A sudden acceleration might provide only a limited window of warning, which leads to the long-term reality of living beside a volcano that's always evolving. For thousands of years, Mount Etna has shaped life across Sicily. Its eruptions have created fertile soil, drawn visitors from around the world, and given local communities a striking landmark rising over the landscape. Its ongoing flank movement is not a sign of imminent catastrophe, but a natural part of a long geological process. Mountains don't stay still. Volcanoes breathe, expand, contract, and reshape themselves over centuries. Etna is no different. The most likely future is simple. Slow drift, occasional adjustments, and eruptions that continue to build and sculpt the volcano piece by piece. But its past collapses remind us that even the largest geological structures can change dramatically over long timescales, often without clear warning from our human perspective. And that's why scientists keep studying every small shift, not to predict the exact moment something might happen, but to stay ready for whatever Etna chooses to do next. Because this mountain grows, it fractures, it slides. And understanding those movements brings us closer to understanding how a giant like this behaves over centuries.